Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents, one and all. Here we are with my pregnant partner here.
That's right.
Eaton, he's big as a house now. If you pan that camera down a little bit, he's ready to burst like an overripe grapefruit.
You know, it's funny. We were out walking the dog this morning as a family, and my neighbor across the street, she just moved in a while ago, this like divorced woman who's very social with everybody. She knows me because I work from home. She doesn't really know Amanda very well. In fact, she never met Amanda before, but she probably has it in her mind that she knows us because she knows me. So she just screams out from her balcony as we're walking the dog today. She says, "You look like you could pop at any second." And Amanda didn't know what the hell it was or who she was. She's like, oh, she tells me that's a strange thing for someone to just blurt out to a stranger.
Just yell out.
Yeah. And I said, well, the thing is, she probably has it in her head that you're not a stranger because she knows who I am. We watched the solar eclipse thing with a couple other neighbors together. We had donuts and we watched the sun.
Did you have the special glasses?
The sun. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. Those glasses actually worked great for that. I was surprised. I'm always surprised when something works the way it's advertised. Like, it's always surprising to me when something actually does what it's supposed to do. But yeah, those eclipse glasses were actually quite cool.
I jury rigged a pair last time when there was the big one in the daytime. There was the big lunar eclipse that everybody wanted to see. Yeah, by the time I got on top of it, they were sold out. So I got really dark sunglasses, and I got 2 layers of welder's glass.
Right.
And I layered them on top of it.
And it worked.
It worked.
Oh, there you go. Worked. Hey, whatever works. Whatever works. But yeah, we had Russell. Russell is practicing getting the intro down and everything. So when I have to take my leave, he could steer the ship. So today's went very well. We had no snafus. We're live on YouTube and Rumble now. 598 filing in the YouTube chat. 524 over on the Rumble chat. Still a long way to go to 1999, which is our next music drop. Now that we have passed 66,666 subscribers, and we've given the YouTubers and the Rumblers their farewell 666. We're going to hit that when we hit 666 likes, right? Are we doing it for the likes? Still, or just the audience? Yeah, we'll do it for the likes because that incentivizes likes.
Because that's still like, will we make it?
Will we make it?
But when we started doing 666, we were never sure if we were actually going to hit that number. So there was some drama to it.
Right, exactly. Now we'll be there in just about a minute or two on YouTube, it seems like. Rumble not far behind.
Somebody made it as a thing I think I'm gonna use, where he did a splice where it actually says 6666, because that's what we're going to use it for now in terms of audience.
That's right. That's right. All right, so we got a lot of stuff to do today. Thank you guys all for spending the afternoon with us. No show tomorrow. Remember, we are on the 3-stream per week schedule now, the paternity leave schedule. We just booked a few great interviews. I don't think we're gonna announce them quite yet, but we just booked a few great interviews because we do want to supplement these streams with pre-recorded sort of deep dive interviews, and we just got a bunch of them scheduled pretty much all at once. So pretty exciting stuff. We'll probably announce those on Sunday.
Pretty much everyone we reached out to us got back to us quick.
Exactly.
Somebody actually reached out to us because we mentioned them on the show.
Yeah.
But we won't talk about that. So what we're planning on doing, and this is part of why we wanted to axe the Wednesday show so we'd have time for other things. What we think we're going to do is every Wednesday drop an interview that'll be a premiere. So these will be pre-taped. It's much easier to get people that way when you don't have to schedule around the live streaming schedule.
Oh, yeah. Like a million times easier when you're not committed to doing it live, because then you could basically schedule them at whatever time works for them. You have to worry about time zones lining up, things like that. So good stuff.
So, yes.
All good stuff.
We have the first 3 weeks booked at this point.
That's right. That is right. All right. Well, let's get to it. We got a lot of news to get to. We're going to start out with some Boeing news, correct?
We are starting out with Boeing. You surprised me there. I wasn't ready. Give me a sec. Give me a sec. Ah, there we go. I'm leaving on a jet plane. So you can cut that in post.
Yes, I can cut the pause. I didn't know that's what you were talking about. I thought you were going for the article, but no, I forgot.
No.
Song.
Okay, so Boeing, just briefly before we get to the main story, it's whenever I work on Boeing, somebody texts me the latest incident of something falling off of Boeing, and then I have to add that to the story. So it's not the main part of this story, but just for fun and giggles and terror. United Airlines loses a tire after takeoff, second time in 4 months. Oops. Okay. I think all right. A United Airlines flight departing from Los Angeles lost a tire during takeoff Monday. Its second Boeing aircraft to have lost a tire in 4 months. The Boeing 757-200 departed LAX around 7:16 a.m. and continued to its destination at Denver International Airport, even after losing the tire, according to the FAA. The plane landed safely around 10:10 a.m. with no reported injuries on the aircraft or on the ground, United Airlines said in a statement. The wheel has been recovered in Los Angeles, and we are investigating what caused this event, United said. The company did not say which tire on the aircraft was lost. The plane had 174 passengers and 7 crew members on board, according to United. United and FAA said they would investigate what caused the tire to fall. This is the second incident involving a tire falling from a United aircraft midair in 4 months. So I guess they have redundancies for that because both times they were able to land the plane. But that is not all that's going on with Boeing. Of course, in what may become an ongoing segment, we might add a Lost in Space segment. Despite indefinite landing delay, NASA insists Boeing Starliner crew not stranded in space. It might be my favorite denial of reality of all time from corporate flacks. And the Boeing spokespeople are even better on this. No, we're just running some tests. While they're up there, we're just running some tests.
That's like the Monty Python sketch with the dead parrot.
The dead parrot,
It's
yes.
not dead. You just stunned him, right? He's stunned.
He's just stunned. He's stunned. He's sleeping. We've got Butch Wilmore, who is really like, I think his parents named him that, wanting him to be an astronaut.
Yeah.
Like, what else could you be with that name? Butch Wilmore, right? Worked out at the hardware
That's a great
store.
name. Yeah.
No, you almost have to be an astronaut. So they're stranded up there actually, we might cover that because Elon is taking swipes at them now with some justification, pointing out, well, all these disasters are happening under a CEO with absolutely no engineering background. His degree is in accounting, the current CEO of Boeing. But a little bit of Boeing being brought to justice, not as much as the families want, but they have agreed to plead guilty in a felony for covering up the reality of the software changes that were made to the MAX and lying to the FAA about what the true nature of the software was. So Boeing agreed on Sunday to plead guilty to a felony charge of conspiring to defraud the federal government over 2 fatal crashes of the 737 MAX in 2018 and 2019, according to a late-night court filing. In the deal with the department outlined in part in the court filing, Boeing also agreed to pay a $487.2 million fine, the maximum allowed by law, and invest at least $455 million over the next 3 years to strengthen its compliance and safety programs. The company will be put on probation, supervised by the Federal District Court for the Northern District of Texas for 3 years. As part of the probation, the Justice Department will appoint an independent compliance monitor who will make sure that safety measures are in place and followed, submitting annual reports to the government. The company will face additional penalties if any of the terms are violated. The company's board of directors will also be required to meet with crash victims' families. Upon news of the settlement, Palmolive stock dropped 23%, as they will no longer be able to use it as a lubricant. Families of the victims who were briefed a week ago, that was a joke. Families of the victims who were briefed a week ago on the general outlines of the deal had said it did not go far enough. Paul G. Cassell, a lawyer for more than a dozen of the families, said they had sought an admission of fault in the deaths of 346 people who were killed in the crashes, which involved Boeing's troubled 737 MAX plane in Indonesia and Ethiopia in late 2018 and early 2019. The families had hoped for stiffer consequences for the company and its executives, including a trial. Now, just to interject, this is why Boeing took the plea, because in a trial, you'd have discovery and they'd
Right.
have to release all their correspondence, and that is the last thing they want. So back to the article. The Justice Department acknowledged the family's position in its court filing on Sunday. In a separate document, the family said they will object to the deal and, quote, intend to argue that the plea deal with Boeing unfairly makes concessions to Boeing that other criminal defendants would never receive and fails to hold Boeing responsible for the deaths of 346 persons. Mr. Cassell said that the government's agreement with Boeing is clearly not in the public interest. Quote, this sweetheart deal fails to recognize that because of Boeing's conspiracy, 346 people died. Through crafty lawyering between Boeing and DOJ, the deadly consequences of Boeing's crime are being hidden, unquote. And as you all know, that is something I wholeheartedly agree with. Dennis Muhlenberg, the CEO at the time, should be in prison, along with several other Boeing executives. These people are the mayor in Jaws. They knew it was dangerous, and they let the people go in the water anyway. Boeing's decision to plead guilty does not provide immunity to any employees or corporate executives. That's good. And the deal does not protect it from charges that might come from other investigations, including one into a January 5th episode on Alaska Airlines in which a panel blew off a Boeing 737 MAX jet soon after the plane took off from the airport serving Portland, Oregon. Though the blowout did not cause any major injuries, all right, here's the nightmare fuel coming up now for anyone who's flying. The incident could have been catastrophic had it happened minutes later when the plane had reached cruising altitude and flight attendants and passengers were moving around the cabin. I'm just not going to think about that. All told, Boeing has spent about $20 billion because of the crashes, including fines, payments to families, reimbursements to airlines, and other costs stemming from a nearly 2-year grounding of the 737 MAX by the FAA. The Justice Department has faced competing pressures over how to punish the already struggling Boeing, one of the biggest U.S. exporters and a large employer among the government's top defense contractors. In 2023, nearly 40% of the company's revenue came from contracts with the U.S. government. 40%, folks. It also interestingly mentions, I didn't use this part of the article, they were, the last time Boeing pled guilty to a felony was in 1989. They were paying a former employee who was working at the Pentagon to steal documents so they could get a leg up on the competition in preparing their bids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Interesting little footnote. While the complete details of the deal were not included in the public court filing on Sunday, Boeing is likely to obtain assurances from the government that a felony conviction will not hinder its government contracts, reducing the impact of the charge on the company's operations, said Mark Lindquist, a lawyer for the families of victims of the MAX 8 crashes, who now represents passengers on the Alaska Airlines flight. Those exemptions would be independent of the plea deal, he said. Quote, while many of us would have preferred a more vigorous prosecution, a guilty plea to a felony is a serious step up in accountability, Mr. Lindquist said. So this is kind of a mixed bag. It is nice to see them being brought under the heel of some kind of supervision just for the safety of the public. The fact that they're going to have some kind of outside supervision in their manufacturing processes, particularly given that Boeing just bought Spirit, their main supplier. Boeing spun off Spirit decades ago in the, great wisdom of privatization and juicing stock price and taking everything out in-house, basically putting it onto another company to do the expensive manufacturing and deal with the labor issues involved, and then offer them a very low price, which in turn squeezed Spirit, which is where a lot of these problems spin from. So now Boeing is reversing that process. They've reabsorbed Spirit. So it is very good that they're going to have some supervision, because I don't think anyone at this point trusts Boeing to oversee its own manufacturing processes. But yes, these executives should go to prison. I'm not an expert in this area. I've done a lot of research on this particular case. Overall, if they were going to prosecute the executives personally and pierce the corporate liability shield, I don't know that I would really have a problem with this settlement. And I don't think the families would either. I think their issue is really that these people are literally not just getting away with murder, they're getting away with mass murder. They're getting away with killing hundreds of people for profit. And if that was your family, I'm sure you'd feel the same way.
Well, yeah, and it's not just that, though. You also have to think of the consequences of them taking the plea deal, which then keeps a lot of the evidence secret. That's one of the big incentives for a corporation to plead guilty. If they go to trial, if they maintain they did nothing wrong, then it goes to trial, and then all of the evidence at that trial becomes public, which means anybody can access it. When you take a plea, that does not happen. Now, this is what happens when corporations and the government become inseparable. There should be some law that serves as an exception to that principle when the defendant in a criminal trial is not just a large corporation, but a large corporation with a virtual monopoly on air travel. Right? Like the public does. Okay, if you're going to plead guilty to criminality and you are in the business of taking people 30,000 feet into the fucking air, then you should not be allowed to have the evidence against you hidden from the public, even if you do take a deal, right? That's just something that you would think lawmakers might want to solve if they weren't bought and paid for. And on the fine end of it, yeah, look, I mean, that's a nice, cute little fine. But as the article points out, when 40% of your revenue comes from the government, to have to pay a fine back to the government, well, that's going to find its way back to you eventually.
Right. Look, $20 billion is no joke, even for a company like Boeing.
No, but they'll make it back. They got Ukraine. They got the Ukraine war going.
Sure. In the end, their malfeasance cost them. Like, this is not a case like, very famously, automakers will look at dangerous conditions and calculate whether it will cost more to fix it than to just pay out the lawsuits. And very often it's worth whatever number of people are going to die rather than the cost of fixing it. This is a case where it seems like the cost of this far exceeds whatever profit they might make or have made from cutting the corners that they did. $20 billion is significant, even for Boeing, even with government contracts. But I think it really is because on the one hand, you see this deference to wealth and status and power in that that was a statement from one of the lawyers, that anybody else would go to trial for murder, right? I mean, they murdered these people. They're literally getting away with murder. So you have that, well, they're aristocrats. They can't be, why? If you're worried that Boeing, which is an important part of the American economy and supply chain, is going to go under, what does that have to do with prosecuting these executives? They've resigned at this point anyway. They're not even part of the company. Why don't you drag Dennis Muhlenberg into court and try him for fucking murder? They won't do that because he's too rich. They just won't go after members of that class. Meanwhile, I go stab my neighbor right now. I'm doing a bid. I'm going away 10 to 20, right?
Yeah, I strongly advise you not to.
Yeah, not today.
Yeah,
they're very nice actually.
Yeah,
You know why? Because the guy dropped $100 bill outside the door once, and I knocked on the door and gave it back to him, and he was incredibly impressed with that. I was like, "What do you think? I'm going to steal your money?" Like, who wouldn't? But now, whenever they see me, they're African.
there you go.
Do you need anything? Are you okay? I love you, man. I love you. You're wonderful. Whatever. But yeah, no, they got away with murdering 346 people, and that's what the families are talking about. In terms of the company itself, Like I said, it seems like they're giving them that oversight, but I think the only reason they're doing this is because Boeing is so important. Boeing is so important, they can't afford to let Boeing destroy itself. They have got to intervene. So they imposed penalties up to the point of intervening in a way that they feel like they're rescuing Boeing without really holding the people responsible for this to account on a personal level.
Yes. Agreed. I'll take some Rumble rants and super chats before we move on. EJ Imagine, thank you. Biden talking to Morning Joe is AI generated. The pace is way too fast to be him. They could have gotten away with that. He was definitely reading off a list by his own admission. He definitely had notes in front of him, which is, part of the perks of doing a phone interview, right? A surprise phone interview. J.K. Michael, thanks for the $5. Is Bree one of your interviews? Not at the moment. No, she's not. We've invited. Look, the invite is open. We
invited her.
Yep. We're living in a rewrite of 1984, written by Franz Kafka. Yes, that's a good observation. I like that. Actually. Nicely said. Eric Housseau. Over on YouTube, the Mumbler, the Cackler 2024. Thank you, Eric Housseau. Appreciate that very much. And the new MSM spin, Biden is just really religious, but is prone to speaking in tongues. Yeah, we'll see what the new spin is. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. 1,213 on YouTube and Twitter, 1083 on YouTube, 130 on X, and 755. Nice crowd filing in over on Rumble as well. We will get to all Rumble rants and super chats in due time. Those are super helpful, so thank you very much for sending those our way. We appreciate that. Jake is not here, but his app is here, so I'm fielding the Rumble rants and putting them on the screen for you. All right, let's get into some more news of the day. So news broke over the weekend that Mark Warner and some senators were going to call a huddle, and Hakeem Jeffries was going to meet, and they met over the weekend to see what's going on with Joe Biden, and Joe Biden was not happy about any of this, so he released for the public yesterday morning a letter that he sent to his fellow Democrats. This morning, I sent a letter to my fellow Democrats on Capitol Hill.
Should have seen the first draft. All work and no play make Joe a dull boy just 1,000 times.
1,000 times, yeah, exactly. I shared my thoughts about this moment in our campaign. It's time to come together, move forward as a united party, and defeat Donald Trump. So there's a lot of text. We're not going to read all of this because the large bulk of this is just basically a campaign speech touting all the things that he deserves so much credit for. We're not really interested in that. But the significant parts we will take a look at here. Fellow Democrats, now that you have returned from the July 4th recess, I want you to know that despite all the speculation in the press and elsewhere, I am firmly committed to staying in this race, to running this race to the end, and to beating Donald Trump. I have had extensive conversations with the leadership of the party, elected officials, rank and file members, and most importantly, Democratic voters over these past 10 days or so. I have heard the concerns that people have, their good faith fears and worries about what is at stake in this election. I am not blind to them. Believe me, I know better than anyone the responsibility and the burden the nominee of our party carries. I carried it in 2020 when the fate of our nation was at stake. I also knew these concerns come from a place of real respect for my lifetime of public service and my record as president, and I have been moved by the expressions of affection for me from so many who have known me well and supported me over the course of my public life. I've been grateful for the rock-solid, steadfast support from so many elected Democrats in Congress and all across the country, and taken great strength from the resolve and determination I've seen from so many voters and grassroots supporters, even in the hardest of weeks. I can respond to all this by saying clearly and unequivocally, I wouldn't be running again if I did not absolutely believe I was the best person to beat Donald Trump in 2024. Now, this is later in the piece here. We had a Democratic nomination process, and the voters have spoken clearly and decisively. This was not later. This comes right after that. I skipped ahead. There's one more slide. We had a Democratic nomination process, and the voters have spoken clearly and decisively. I received over 14 million votes 87% of the votes cast across the entire nominating process. I have nearly 3,900 delegates, making me the presumptive nominee of our party by a wide margin. I love this. This was a process open to anyone who wanted to run. Yeah, I mean, who the fuck you think you're... Only 3 people chose to challenge me.
Yeah.
One fared so badly that he left the primaries to run as an independent. Another attacked me for being too old and was soundly defeated. The voters of the Democratic Party have voted. They have chosen me to be the nominee of the party. Do we now just say this process didn't matter? That the voters don't have a say? You literally told New Hampshire you were canceling the primary and invalidating their votes, that whatever delegates were won at New Hampshire would not be seated because they jumped the line and went first.
Right. Well, they
after
canceled
you
others
switched
too.
the calendar around to put South Carolina first. So you literally told the first in the nation primary state that their votes did not matter. That was literally word from you. And
Right.
you wanted it that
and
way.
they canceled the
DNC
other
wanted it that way.
primaries too.
Yeah, anybody who went before South Carolina. And yes, I mean, look, the idea that this was open to anyone who wanted to run, that's just not how primaries
Of course not.
work when there's an incumbent. And now there's been a little bit of relitigation, not much, because of the absurdity of the candidates who threw their hat in the ring, namely Marianne and then Dean Phillips at the last minute. This was long after RFK had already said, fuck this, I'm out. Those were unserious campaigns. I mean, in the case of Marianne and Dean Phillips, really, I mean, the only people who would throw their hat in the ring are the people who are not serious candidates, because anyone who had a serious chance to win knew this was not open to anyone who wanted to run. That's the whole point. It never is when there's an incumbent. It was actually Joe Biden who said when he was running in 2020 that he was running as a transitional figure, which implied, didn't state outright, but it implied strongly that he would step down after one term, in which case it would have been a truly open process to the extent that the Democrats run fair and open processes. Wink, wink. But then you would have had a field. You would have had a field of candidates. The reason you only had Dean Phillips, RFK for a while, and Marianne is because you shut everybody out from before day one. Everyone knows that.
Well, and this is what they do, because in the end, the Democratic Party as an institution is not even really about winning elections. It's about creating wealth and power for its members and officials. And that's why they keep doing this. This is not the first time. Some people will say, well, they didn't have an open primary because you have a sitting president. They never do that when you have a sitting president. Okay, so what about 2016? We know 2 years before the primaries, they cleared the field for Hillary. That's why Biden wasn't in 2016.
That's a good
He
point.
wanted to run. They sat him down and were like, no, it's Hillary this time. Sorry. So you're going to have to take a back seat. That's why only Bernie and other candidates who were not
no one ever heard of,
big insiders were willing to run. Nobody who cared about their future in the Democratic Party and keeping these people happy was willing to run. So with their brilliant strategery, they keep losing elections, but they don't really care in the end. They would rather have Donald Trump than Bernie Sanders. And extending that out further, they would rather have a candidate in their pocket than to leave open these nominating processes to the vagaries of whatever the voters might choose.
Yes. Good point, Charles. We need that. We need that sound drop ready for next time. We
gotta pull that,
because it's true. I didn't even think of that. But even in 2016, when it was theoretically an open primary, it really wasn't, because what was it? The Ready for Hillary PAC made a deal with the state
O'Malley. O'Malley was that
O'Malley, Chafee, the guy Jim Webb, the military guy, and Sanders. That was it. But it was I think it was Ready for Hillary. It was a Hillary super PAC that cut a deal with the state Democratic parties to donate to the Hillary PAC. Instead of beefing up their own state parties, and then they would get a cut of that PAC money on the back end. You know who actually first reported that? Donna Brazile got all the credit for it. No, she got all the credit for it because it was in her book. You know who actually reported that in real time? Margot Kidder. And no one took her seriously because she happens to be a little crazy. But she actually worked. Well, she was. I think she has since died. Yes, she wrote an article. Well, she worked with the Montana State Democratic Party, and she wrote a piece on that. at the time. And
So
I shared it on
basically-
Facebook, but no one printed it because she is who she is. But she was actually first on that, not Donna Brazile. Donna Brazile got the credit for it.
So you're telling me that Lois Lane broke the story?
She did. She broke the story. Lois Lane had the scoop. That was her story. Absolutely. I remember that. In fact, I should find that. We should read that on the air because that was, yeah.
Well, and this is the thing that Blue Anon will never look at or contemplate because it would just cause too much cognitive dissonance. If the DNC got out of the way, there never would have been a Trump presidency. And I'm not even, I'm going to be completely fair and down the middle here. I'm not even going to tell you in an open primary it would have been Bernie. In fact, it probably wouldn't have. It probably would have been Biden.
It probably would have been Biden.
Back in 2016, he was coherent.
Yep.
And you know, he would have he plays that bullshit of being Joe from Scranton that people were in the mood for then. What would the Democratic voters have gone for? A Democratic socialist? Bernie only got as far as he got because Hillary was so fucking repulsive.
Right. And Biden was the incumbent VP. Biden would have had it.
Yeah. He would have had it. There never would have been a Trump presidency. Now this is that redux. This is that karma come down to bite the Democrats again. So in 2020, Bernie certainly would have been the nominee that year if Obama had not done the Monday Night Massacre. Okay, so you propped up this guy that let's not kid ourselves. They knew that he was losing it already. Right. But they figured they could install him as a puppet, which is exactly what they did. But now they're in a position where you got Joe Biden with his monumental Nixonian class resentments and with half his brain gone, refusing to resign. And this is the position they put themselves in by foisting him on the public in 2020. Now you're stuck with this.
Exactly. So he says, do we now just say this primary process that he just touted didn't matter? The voters don't have a say. I decline to do that. I feel a deep obligation to the faith and the trust of the voters of the Democratic Party have placed in me to run this year. It was their decision to make. Before the primary, forget about before this last disaster of a meltdown that you just had in front of 50 million people with Donald Trump on the stage. Before the primary, 70% of Democrats said they didn't want you to seek a second term. So the idea that they chose to put their trust in you, they voted for you because MSNBC told them to.
Yep.
They never wanted to.
As you point out, 70% didn't want him, but 70% voted for him
anyway. Exactly, yes. So they didn't place trust in you. They voted for you because the TV man told them to. Not the press, not the pundits, not the big donors, not any selected group of individuals, no matter how well-intentioned. The voters, and the voters alone, decide the nominee of the Democratic Party. How can we stand for democracy in our nation if we ignore it in our own party? That deserves a Rappaport sound drop. I just don't have it handy at the moment. But that is something else.
Yes, the level of hypocrisy is stunning.
Stunning. How can we stand for democracy in our nation if we ignore it in our own party? I cannot do that. There we go. I will not do that. So, okay, now this skips ahead. All right, so the big body of the piece is that he went on to tout all of his accomplishments and his records. At the end, he says, once again, my fellow Democrats, we have the record, we have the vision and the fundamental commitment to America's freedoms and our democracy to win. The question of how to move forward has been well aired for over a week now, and it's time for it to end. We have one job, and that's to beat Donald Trump. We have 42 days to the Democratic Convention and 119 days to the general election. Any weakening of resolve or lack of clarity about the task ahead only helps Trump and hurts us. It is time to come together, move forward as a unified party, and defeat Donald Trump. Sincerely, Joe Biden. To which AOC actually in a press conference, I didn't see this in time to pull the video, but she says this is now a settled matter. Joe Biden is going to be the nominee. So she just folded like an end. It's amazing how like the insurgents are the first to actually fold. Yeah. Right. It's actually the right wing Democrats like Mark Warner, who is basically a Republican. He's now trying to get Biden out, and you have the progressives now saying, well, maybe this is the way it has to be. I don't believe this. I still do not believe this. I believe that if you look at this the way like a episode of like the Teenage Mutant
Well,
Ninja
Bernie
Turtles.
too. Bernie too. They interviewed him
Yes.
over the weekend about this. I support the president. He had a
Yeah.
he had a bad debate. Nobody. Oh, come on, man. So pathetic. They're all so pathetic. I think part of the reason for that is people like Joe Manchin, for example. They're on the establishment supports them. They don't have as many enemies. Somebody like AOC, yeah, now Jen Psaki will give her a foot rub in an interview. They're not going to give her the treatment like they used to. But these people don't forget. Look at Elizabeth Warren.
Of course.
Look at Elizabeth Warren. She completely debased herself, and they never gave her shit. What you cross these people once, that's it. You'll never be an insider.
No. My theory on this, though, is I'm still saying he's out in about a week and a half, because I see this as, if you ever watch like the Ninja Turtles cartoons, who are the first people that like Shredder sends out to beat the Turtles? It's the foot soldiers, the incompetent,
right.
stumbling
The bumblers,
idiots who have no chance, and they just beat them and whack them around. And then you get to, the Bebop and the Rocksteady, and then you get to the guy with the brain in his stomach, right? Krang, whatever he is. And then Shredder is at the end of the game or at the end of the show. The Democrats are doing the same thing. They're seeing if they can get the foot soldiers to convince him to drop out. Because if you're the Democrats, ideally, you don't want Barack Obama to have to chime in on this. You don't want Hakeem Jeffries to have to chime in on this. You don't want Schumer, Pelosi. You don't want any of the top brass to have to come out and say that Biden can't win. You don't want that for a couple of reasons. One, it's just an embarrassment. But two, those are pieces of sound you can't take back if he decides not to drop out, right? Like if Barack Obama comes out and, puts out on Instagram, Joe, we thank you for your lifelong commitment to our country, but it's time to drop out. That is advertising gold for the Republicans if Biden stays in. Right.
Yep.
And even if he drops out, it's embarrassing to have the leader of the party come out and take the ball. So you would ideally like for Mark Warner to be able to huddle in a closed door room and say, we got to get him out. And he drops out. But that doesn't seem to have happened. He seems to have swatted those foot soldiers away. So now it's going to escalate. And it's my belief that the party leadership is not going to blink first. I am convinced that Schumer, Jeffries, Pelosi, and Obama and James Clyburn all want him out, and I believe they will make that opinion known if they have to. They hope they don't have to. Perhaps they will, because this guy is a stubborn prick who, as we'll see in the next segment, has a lifelong resentment for the Democratic elite because they always look down on him because he's always been kind of a dumb guy.
This was a late-breaking story right before we went on, but Congress met. And according to the reporting, the Democrats met.
Right.
According to the reporting, the majority of them are still backing Biden. Now, of course, that will change if their leadership tells them they need to think differently about it. But apparently, even behind closed doors, the leadership is not telling them that yet. I have said from the beginning, Biden is not going to go willingly. They are going to have to find a leverage point. I think the best way to get to him is through his family. They're a bunch of carny grifters. If they can figure out the right thing to offer them,
bribe them.
They'll tell him to step down, and that would probably do it. But as long as his family is telling him to fight on, I don't think he'll step out without a 25th Amendment remedy. I really don't. And honestly, with the Democrats, I always say you'll never lose money betting on them doing the worst thing they could possibly do. Don't bet that they will not run him. Don't bet on it. Don't bet on it. When the alternative is Kamala, which whatever they're trying to say in public, whatever they're whispering to their goons in the media to write these puff pieces about what a great candidate she would be, they know what they'd have on their hands with Kamala. So don't assume that they're definitely going to decide to push him out. They might decide to try to drag him over the finish line in November and then make Kamala the president.
I mean, this has been my prediction for about a year now. I'm certainly not going to abandon it now. I'm sticking to it. Now
I'm not saying that's likely.
We're moving the ball down the field,
I'm not saying
baby.
that's the
You
most
want me to kick a
likely
field goal
scenario.
now? No fucking way.
Yeah.
We're going to the end zone.
I'm not saying it's the most likely scenario, but I'm not saying it's as out of the question as we're kind of
it's
discussing
not out of the question, but I mean, the thing that so the thing that would put it out of the question is if these big money donors, these Disney heiresses and these Ari Emanuels said, listen, we're not blinking first. We're not giving this party a dime if he's on the top of the ticket, because money talks in the
or
Democratic
we're only
Party,
giving it to Congress and the Senate. But hey,
no, the Disney says she's not donating it at all. Forget Congress, Senate. We're not investing in the party.
Most of them are not saying that, though. Yeah. They're saying that they won't give to the presidential campaign.
Yeah.
If the money's still coming into the Congress and the Senate, and you've got this guy, literally, you're going to have to take him out with the 25th Amendment. They might just let it go and let him go all the way to November, as long as their bread is buttered.
That would be something. John M. in Minnesota, New York Times, January 30th headline, Boeing faces tricky balance between safety and financial performance. Yes, we saw that. Yes, that was from months back. Indeed. Let's see here.
Well, that's why I say it should be nationalized.
Yes, indeed. Thought it was hilarious, says Shina Billy. The artist who made the Truth Teller collage included you guys, but left out Brie. Not an accident with so many included.
Listen, I keep saying Brie is in it as a no-show.
Right, she's in it as a no-show. She's there even though she's not there.
That was their tribute to her.
Her tribute was, we're going to include you, but we're going to include you as having lost track of time, so you couldn't make it there.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Which is a tribute to her professionalism, that poster.
Yes, indeed. Kenman G. Rob Reiner, as a Zionist, had to block him on X. Thank you, Kenman G. So they didn't have any alien sex loops, as Eric Husseau. Captain James T. Kirk would have had some. Yes, for the stranded astronauts, they could have passed the time there. That's true.
They ain't got no green broads up there.
That's right. Kenman G. It's very disturbing when celebrities talk about kindness and being good to your fellow man and then support Zionism. There are no values left. Thank you, Kenman. Yes, we agree with that. We are taxed to pay Boeing's fines. It's our money they're paying the fines with. Yeah, it's a good point. If 40% of the money comes from the government, then yes, that is a good way of thinking about it, actually.
That's true. That's true. That's a good point.
Indeed. Here we go. Let's see here. Tim Canterbury, thank you for the €20. It's depressing that many so-called leftists are still planning to vote for Joe even after we found out about the 186,000 dead Gazans. These people treat genocide as a lifestyle choice like avoiding meat. They are just HRC Democrats. Really.
They're mindless. They're mindless. They have absolutely no opinion. They always remind me of the Jackie Mason used to do a routine about the difference between Jews and Gentiles in a restaurant. Gentile, he goes to a restaurant, you give him a plate of peas, he eats a plate of peas.
Right.
He doesn't ask any questions. A Jew walks in, he's like a partner. I want a table here, not too close to the kitchen, not too drafty.
Yeah.
That's what they're like with politics. You know, you give them a plate of peas, they eat a plate of peas.
Exactly.
They don't question.
That's right. That's right. And that 186,000 figure was in reference to this here. Lancet report estimates the real overall death toll, including indirect deaths, will likely exceed 186,000, wiping out 8% of Gaza in 9 months. More than 10,000 bodies are buried under rubble. Yes, we are covering that later in the show today. That is on the list. Brent Yo Endo, thoughts on Jimmy not talking Gaza on Rogan, said he forgot and acted really funny about it when asked yesterday on their stream. Rogan had a Mossad agent on and was calling protesters anti-Semitic. Yeah, I haven't watched all of Jimmy's interview. I watched like the first half.
We haven't.
I noticed he mentioned that he did say something about funding a genocide, but I did not watch the whole thing. And he messaged us something. He texted us about how he wanted to talk about something else that he didn't get to. What was it? He said there was something that he wanted to do about something about his phone being hacked or something like that.
Yeah.
I forget. Teddy G, I remember that Kidder story. I just flagged that. I remember that Kidder story. Yeah. A couple people in the chat did remember it. Yeah, it went basically unnoticed at the time, but I remember posting that and arguing with some shitlibs about that. Oh, they can donate wherever they want. The point is, they were told not so they basically had this racket going where they were telling the state Democratic parties to tell their donors not to donate to the state parties, but to donate to the Hillary PAC instead. And then the Hillary
I gotta say, if you watch the 1978 classic Superman, it is just really kind of tragic because both Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder, you watch them in the prime of their life, and who could imagine they both had such tragic lives ahead of them?
Yes.
Indeed.
Hammurabi, for every plane injury, a mina of silver. Thank you, Amadeus. Appreciate that. Okay, let's see what else we got here. I know we got some more Rumble rants here. Hey, looky here, says Eric Russo. We found $20 billion in Boeing seat cushion to send to Ukraine. Hooray. Thank you. And Biden is a demented narcissist. Thank you. Kenman G. Zion Nazis need to be stopped. Oop, wrong button there. Sorry about that. Thank you, Kenman, for the donations. All right, let's move on here. We got plenty more on the docket for today. Okay, so after Joe Biden sent his defiant letter to, I suppose, members of Congress, I mean, it was really a public letter since he tweeted that out saying he intends to stay in the race, he decides to call in to Morning Joe. A little surprised. They had not planned this. They cut in, and Joe Biden is on the phone for an interview. Here's some of how that went. Here's a little highlight reel. We're going to try and be super disciplined and let this play through. It's about 4 minutes. We'll probably laugh at it quite a bit, and then we'll talk about it after.
So we noted yesterday there was quite a contrast to the people that were supporting you yesterday compared to, say, a lot of the Washington insiders and Hollywood moguls, and go down the list of very powerful people that want you out compared to the support that you had in Pennsylvania yesterday. That said, there are a lot of people of goodwill who love you, who believe you did a great job in your first term, who are still concerned. Yesterday, the topic came up of the Stephanopoulos interview, where you were asked the question, how would you feel if Donald Trump beat you? How would you feel after you lost? And you said, well, as long as I did the best I could do, that's the most important thing.
He said.
That's
goodest. That's right.
Democrats
That's right. You misquoted him. He said, as long as I do the goodest I could do. Right.
that losing is not an option. What would you say to those who are concerned by that answer?
It's not an option. And I've not lost. I haven't lost. I beat him last time. I'll beat him this time. And this is a guy who, look, we talk about debates. Look at his performance with debates. He lied over, Trump has 50 lies. I mean, look, this is a guy.
First it was 28 lies.
Of the universe. I want to get into it. He's just a liar. And he hasn't done a damn thing.
I'm sorry. I try my best not to stop it. I try. First, the line out of the debate was he lied 28 times. That was the fact checkers. That's what they said. Biden ran with that. Now he's saying he lied 50 times. And it's funny because he's never actually articulated one of the lies he's talked about. Now, so he says 50 instead of 28, and he goes to recall one, and he says, never mind.
Trump has 50 lies.
50 lies.
I mean, look, this is a guy who says 10% of the universe. I want to get into it. He's just a liar. And he hasn't done a damn thing since the debate.
You don't even have to remember it. You're calling in. You could have it. Don't you have a piece of paper in front of you? Wow.
He's been riding around in a golf cart for 10 days. He's down in Mar-a-Lago talking with his wealthy friends. I'm not running because of these guys, Joe.
Okay, so you have repeatedly said that all of these people and entities.
I don't need this. I don't need this working class hero crap.
The New York Times editorial board, The Economist, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Boston Globe, Jerry Nadler, Seth Moulton. Let me go to Julian Castro, Tim Ryan.
You see what happens, Larry, when you fuck a stranger in the ass?
Richard Haas. Yeah, I know which one you're responding to there. Zeke Emanuel. But they're saying that you should step aside. So what is your plan of attack moving forward? These are pretty big names.
Is to go out and keep doing their big names, but I don't care what those big names think. They were wrong in 2020. They're wrong in 2022 about the red wave. They're wrong in 2024. And come out with me. Watch people react. You make a judgment. You make a judgment. And by the way, I'm going to have all these foreign leaders here. I've been in contact with the new British Prime Minister, with the anyway. Look,
anyway.
The country, the rest of the world's looking.
I still feel no obligation to finish my sentences, even after all this is going on.
And here's the deal. It's not going to happen here this time around. The American public is not going to move away from me as an average voter. And again, I'm here for 2 reasons, pal. One, to rebuild the economy for hardworking middle-class people, give everybody a shot. Just a straight shot. Everybody gets
your hand out of my socket!
Number one. Number two, remember all this talk about how I don't have the black support? Come on, give me a break. Come with me. Watch. I'm getting so frustrated by the elites. Now, I'm not talking about you guys, but about the elites in the party.
The elites.
They know so much more. But any of these guys don't think I should run against me. Go ahead, announce for president. Challenge me in the convention.
Wow.
You know, on Europe, the polls are wrong in France. They're also right. There's no right wave or tide here in America either. By the way, in case you're wondering whether there is one, have you ever seen Trump run away so fast from what he's for?
President Joe Biden, let's make this a thing. Thank you for calling in.
I just had to throw that in at the end. That was at the very end. Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah,
this was great.
Let's have a cringe, awkward call in from you every day.
Every day. Why'd you call in and do this every day? It'll be like FDR's fireside chat.
Yeah,
right? Just the same thing. Just regular
only incoherent and terrifying.
Only fucking terrifying and incoherent. What a sack of shit this party has become. I mean, it is such karma to be like, 8 years ago, convinced Hillary Clinton was going to win, and now here you find yourselves, these two idiots, just staring at the camera, hanging on the every word of this just puddle of a man who can't even get a sentence out, who can't even get a thought out. But he mentioned twice in that little snippet, this whole interview was 18 minutes. I sort of cut together like a 4-minute highlight reel there. But he mentions twice in there that the party elite want him gone. He calls them, he mentions them by name, the party elite. And then in response to Mika's question earlier, where she rattles off the list of names, including like David Axelrod and Jerry Nadler, they're not the elite. They're the foot soldiers, as I mentioned last time. The elite will, in my opinion, open their mouths if they have to. But you could see twice, yes, that underdog, underestimated Nixonian resentment come through. He doesn't really like these people. He doesn't like the party bosses because they never liked him.
Right.
They only made him vice president so that the white Midwesterners would feel more comfortable voting for a guy named Barack Hussein Obama. It's the only reason he's president now. It's the only reason he was vice president then.
That's why whenever they say, what do you mean he's a racist? He was Obama's vice president. That's why they picked him.
That's why they
picked him. To reassure the racists that they had one of their own in there to keep an eye on Malcolm.
Exactly. That is why he was chosen. That's exactly why he was chosen to be the VP, and he always had a resentment because, this has been written about how Biden's inner circle were all these, young, handsome Ivy League types, the John Favreau types, right? And they would always look at Biden as the doddering old beer-drinking idiot, right? They always looked down on him, even when he was vice president. They never really respected him. Yeah, he's the guy we had to bring along to get the Midwestern white people to vote for us in Michigan. Right. And so he has a resentment about that, and he's being very difficult. Yeah, he's being very difficult. I am not surprised he's being difficult at this phase. I guess the real question is, does he have the balls to tell Barack Obama to go fuck himself if and when it comes time for Obama to say he's got to go?
I mean, according to Joe Biden, Barack Obama is the first black guy who's articulate and clean.
Right.
So that might give him some pause.
Right.
To speak that way to such an articulate and clean black man, according to Joe Biden.
According to the great man, the great Joe Biden. The other question is, all right, if Obama opening his mouth gives the Republicans ad material to run on, if Biden says no, does Biden open his mouth in the first place? Or is he like, it's too big a risk? That's an interesting question. I think they will. I can't imagine them not. I just cannot imagine it. I cannot imagine it. Look at that. Look at that. And don't take it from me, folks. Here's Jake Tapper reacting to this video. This was a pretty hilarious piece of video.
The fact of the matter is, how can you assure you're going to be out on, on your way to go, work tomorrow, age wasn't, the idea that I'm too old. Keep in mind, that soundbite is supposed to be reassuring to those Democratic supporters who have gone wobbly. Many Democratic officials with whom I've spoken.
Let him read that.
The fact of the matter is, how can you assure you're going to be out on, on your way to go, work tomorrow, age wasn't, the idea that I'm too old. Keep in mind, that soundbite is supposed to be reassuring to those Democratic supporters who have gone wobbly. Many Democratic officials with whom I've spoken are worried that President Biden and his family and his inner circle appear to be in complete denial, not just about whatever might be wrong with him, but the state of his candidacy right now.
Yeah, I'd say so. Go ahead. Sorry.
If you notice, if any of you were on LibWatch, George Takei accepted. They're mostly kind of shutting the fuck up now.
Yeah.
They're mostly starting to quiet down. They just don't know what to do. Here's Jake Tapper, who one of my Pod Save interviews called his favorite journalist.
Right.
He's held in very high regard amongst these blue and on types. And then you have Joe Biden telling them something else. They don't know whether to shit or go blind right now.
Well, yeah, they're used to this being one happy family of delusional bullshit where Jake Tapper and Morning Joe and Joe Biden and Barack Obama, we're all on the same page. We have our narrative. We have our buzzwords that we throw out there. We have our Trump bashing, and that's it. We all agree. Now, there is conflict. There's conflict among that upper echelon who the rank and file lib lemmings look to, and they don't know what decision to make because they're not used to having to make decisions.
Right. They're not used to having to think.
Right. They're not used to having to think.
They're told one uniform narrative. It's very Monarchian. It's very good versus evil. It's very simple. If you got a red hat on, you're the orcs, and we're the good guys, and we're gonna fight at Mortar, and they don't have to. They'll have to deal with these kinds of complexities.
Exactly. All right, we got plenty more show today, but we are going to pause quickly for a word from our sponsors. And by sponsors, we, of course, mean our patrons. So you can go to patreon.com/DoDissidents and become a member of our organization here. Members get their name up in lights on the patron scroll here. You also get call-in access to our post-show Q&As on Rumble, which happen every week. And we also give you 2 special patron-only live streams per month that are on Rumble, and they are interactive live streams. We do about an hour of content on those streams, and then we take about an hour's worth of calls. So those are really fun interactive shows that are for members only. Membership starts at just $5 a month, and it is what keeps the show going. You guys are what censor-proof the operation. You are what make us feel comfortable that we can continue this project no matter what big tech obstacles are thrown in our way. So you can go to patreon.com/DoDissidents, DoDissidents.substack.com, or you can join our locals, DoDissidents.locals.com. If you're watching over on Rumble now, I think we got almost 1,000 of you guys over there at this point. Yep, 950. Then you can hit that bright red join button right underneath the video screen, and that takes you to the locals page. Thank you guys very much for your support. You guys are the backbone of the show. We say that every time. We mean it every time. Back from the road, thanks to the $9.99. As a former South Carolinian, why let us vote first? Is it to purposefully have the least educated electorate vote first, like a fat kid setting pace in a group run, U.S. led by a vanguard of inbreds? Wow, you're really running down your own state there, Back from the Road. Not a whole lot of state pride from Back from the Road.
Well, you know why? Because there are very few states, if any, that are as completely under control of one politician who is himself completely under control as South Carolina, and that's James Clyburn.
Yep, that's where the
James
kingmaker
Clyburn, we saw that in 2020. That's all it took. Bernie was running ahead of Biden in some polls in South Carolina when he came out of pulling the hat trick of the first 3 states. And all it took was Clyburn doing this. Boom. That was it. His numbers just collapsed. They have total control over that state as long as Clyburn is there.
That's right. That's right. It's truly a machine politics environment there. Thanks to one man. Here we go. No Dem. See, this is. I think you're right about this, P. Walker. No Dem serious about winning the presidency will run in 2024. They'll wait for 2028, then add in the problem of bumping Harris out of the way. Stuck with Joe 2024.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not out of the question that they just go, fuck it. People will be so scared of Trump, it'll be good for Congress and the Senate.
Maybe. It's possible, but I think they're gonna have to push him out because, I mean, how is he gonna talk? I mean, how are you gonna do it? He can't even call in to Morning Joe. He can't even get through. He can't even talk on the phone.
Well, it would be interesting if he refuses to go and they decide to solve their problem of having to go out there and pretend he's not deranged. If they just run as, hey, I think Joe Biden should have stepped down. I'm not running for Joe Biden. I'm running for this district. And
right. Yeah. I mean, they could be put in a position where they have to do that. At that point, you are not giving yourself a chance at the presidency. No, right. I understand the argument. I've made the argument myself. And this is why Kamala is vice president, because she's even worse. Like if she's and this is why they're in this spot. He knew that if he picked a competent vice president, they'd force him out. Like the guy is just a nightmare of a man. He's just a horrible man. On top of all this, like just a really selfish egomaniac with clearly no ability to see the world from outside his own eyes. Even when George Stephanopoulos asked, hey, if you lose and your legacy is that you give the presidency back to Trump, how would you feel? Well, as long as I did my goodish job, that's fine.
Yep.
That is the character.
The end of democracy, they're telling you.
Right. Yeah. Hey, I gave it my best. I tried. Stay in, Joe. 2024 Democratic primary voters. Thank you, Cool Blue. All right, we got one more piece of Biden intrigue, and then we are going to turn our sights to foreign policy here. But please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Hit that follow button. We're almost at $19.99 here. We got to hit that like button on YouTube. Maybe we'll get there today. See, this is what makes it fun. This is what makes it exciting. Will we hit the drop or will we not hit the drop? That's the way 666 used to be.
Exactly.
Right.
Which, these are good problems to have. We're not complaining.
No, we are not complaining. Not at all. All righty. So the New York Times puts out a report. Parkinson's expert visited the White House 8 times in 8 months. An expert on Parkinson's disease from Walter Reed National Military Medical Center visited the White House 8 times in 8 months from last summer through this spring, including at least once for a meeting with President Biden's physician, according to official visitor logs. The expert, Dr. Kevin Kennard, is a neurologist who specializes in movement disorders and recently published a paper on Parkinson's. The logs, released by the White House, to the public, by the way, as we will show you later, document visits from July 2023 through March of this year. More recent visits, if there have been any, would not be released until later under the White House's voluntary disclosure policy. It was unclear whether Dr. Kennard was at the White House to consult specifically about the president or was there for unrelated meetings. Dr. Kennard's LinkedIn page describes him as supporting the White House medical unit for more than 12 years. His biography on Doximity, a website for health professionals, lists him as a neurology consultant to the White House medical unit and the physician to the president from 2012 to 2022, which would include the administrations of Presidents Barack Obama and Donald Trump. Records from the Obama administration when Mr. Biden was vice president show that Dr. Kennard made at least 10 visits in 2012, plus a family tour, 4 in 2013, 1 in 2014, 4 in 2015, and 8 in 2016. Mr. Trump rescinded Mr. Obama's voluntary White House visitors disclosure policy, so records are not available for his 4 years in office. So it looks here like he has gone to the White House before, but don't forget, when he went before, he didn't have a president who was clearly showing signs of Parkinson's, which we will get to. Dr. Kennard did not respond to repeated requests for comment. The White House would not comment specifically on the purpose of Dr. Kennard's recent visits or whether they were related to the president. A wide variety of specialists from the Walter Reed system visit the White House complex to treat the thousands of military personnel who work on the grounds, Andrew Bates, a White House spokesman, said in a statement. Without discussing Dr. Kennard specifically, Mr. Bates said the president has been seen by a neurologist once a year as part of his overall annual physical checkup, and that examination, has found no sign of Parkinson's, and he is not being treated for it. He declined to provide dates of any meetings between Mr. Biden and any of his specialists, but said that there have been no neurologist visits besides the one for his physical per year, 3 in total, during his 3.5 years in office. We're going to get back to this article in a minute, but this did come up at the White House press conference yesterday, and Karin Jean-Pierre got a little testy with a reporter, Ed O'Keefe, who was kind of running out of patience on her stonewalling about this Parkinson's doctor visiting the White House. Here's that exchange.
Basic direct question.
Wait. Hold on. Wait a second.
Eight times, or at least once, in regards to the president specifically.
Hold on a second.
That's what you should be able to answer by this point.
Wait, no. No, wait a minute. Ed, please. A little respect here, please. Every year...
You're running a candidate that can't talk against the guy who you say is Hitler. And you're asking for patience and respect. Hey, calm down. Don't get aggressive with me. Calm down.
Well,
why should they calm down?
This is very much like the Katrina moment in the Bush White House, where the press had never said boo to their press secretary. All of a sudden, once Katrina happened, not only did they suddenly get curious about Katrina, they got curious for the first time about Iraq.
Right.
It was the first time they started giving them a hard... I remember Jon Stewart doing a segment on that back then, saying, oh, the free press, where have you guys been? That's what this is like. And she's not used to it because they've just given her foot rubs the whole time she's had the job.
Exactly. And now all of a sudden they say, hey, maybe we should check under the hood here.
On the president's physical examination, he sees a neurologist. That's 3 times, right? So I am telling you that he has seen a neurologist 3 times while he has been in this presidency. That's what I'm saying. I am telling you that he has seen them 3 times. That is what I'm sharing with you, right? So every time he has a physical, he has had to see a neurologist. So that is answering that question.
No, it's not.
No, it is. It is. You're
Dr.
asking me.
Kennard,
I cannot. But I also said to you, Ed. I also said to you, for security reasons, we cannot share names. We cannot share names.
You cannot
we have to. We have to.
Others he would have met with.
We
but
cannot
you can share
exactly.
Names in regards to if someone came here in regards to the president.
We cannot share names of specialists broadly.
That is an absolute lie. An absolute lie, according to the New York Times article, and I'm about to corroborate that. In fact, I will do that right now since you just said that. Here's the voluntary disclosure policy for White House visitor logs. This is public. Go to whitehouse.gov. You can read all this, right? As previously announced, President Biden is reinstating a policy to voluntarily disclose White House visitor logs. These logs will include appointment information for individuals who have been processed to enter the White House complex, including the White House, Eisenhower Executive Office Building, blah, blah, blah. The voluntary disclosure policy will apply to records after January 20th, 2021, when he was sworn in. The White House consider these records to be subject to the Presidential Records Act or the Federal Records Act and will continue to preserve them accordingly. This policy will be subject to the following exceptions. So everything she's talking about here is already accounted for. The White House will not release fields within the access records that implicate personal privacy or law enforcement concerns, meaning they will not disclose the specific person that they're there to see or anything that could be private or sensitive information. The White House will not release access records of staff members. The White House will not release access records whose release would threaten national security interests. The White House will not release access records related to purely personal guests. The White House will not release access records related to a small group of particularly sensitive meetings. But the White House will voluntarily disclose their visitor logs, which simply say who goes there. So it's when she says in this last piece of video here, let's play this back.
We cannot share names.
You cannot
we
share
have to.
names
We have
of
to.
others he would have met with.
We
but
cannot
you can share names in regards to if someone came here in regards to the president.
We cannot share names of specialists broadly.
Absolute bald-faced lie. Here it is. You could search this on whitehouse.gov right now. You could do a visitor log record search. I did before the show, and there he is. That's what they are referring to. They're not doxing anybody there. They're not saying why he was there or who he was there to see, and that's what O'Keefe challenges her on. He says, you can't tell me. If I ask why was Kevin Kennard at the White House, and the answer was he was there to see a guy named Bob who has an illness that Bob is being treated for, yes, you cannot disclose that. But I'm not asking you that. I'm not asking you who he was there to see. I'm asking you, was he there to see Joe Biden because he was concerned he might have Parkinson's? You absolutely can answer that question. And given the fact that you're running a vegetable against Hitler, according to the White House itself, you kind of have a civic obligation to answer that question. And she says, we can't reveal the names of specialists. Yes, you can. That's the whole point. You can search the name. That's the name of the specialist right there, whitehouse.gov. It took me a minute to find this. Literally, it's the easiest thing in the world, according to their own policy. So you're just lying straight to the guy's face. We can't reveal the specialist name. If you can't reveal the specialist name, why are people asking about him? How do you think people found out he was there in the first place? Because the visitor logs are public.
A lot of people say she's bad at her job, and we don't watch White House press conferences all that much. But she doesn't seem any worse at that job than anybody else. She fell right back on bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, look,
she's playing the fake outrage and protecting the norms thing, knowing that she's just lying.
Of course,
that's not a bad, and it looks like
fault.
it looks like she improv'd it, and that's a pretty good one if you're going to go with anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's total bullshit. I'm animated because of just what a brazen lie it was.
She's hitting on the safetyism.
Of course, anybody would say that. Yeah,
it's a security issue. You don't want to endanger lives, do you? It's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
I mean, look, yes, as I've said, I don't hold it personally against these people. This is their job. Any press secretary would do exactly what she's doing. But as you can see there, the list of exceptions are accounted for that she cited. And she says, we cannot say a name. Of course you can say a name. The reason people know he was there in the first place is because the logs are public. So what do you mean you can't say? If you can't say his name, how do people find out he was there? What? Did somebody leak that? No. It's on the website. You could search it. Anybody could search it. It took me less than a minute to find it.
From a dermatologist to a neurologist, we cannot share names. There are security reasons. We have to protect. I understand that. I hear you.
Right there for anyone to see.
Ed,
yes.
I hear you. I cannot from here confirm any of that because we have to keep their privacy. I think they would appreciate that
She's
too.
being very sleazy. And to Russell's credit, she's doing a fairly good job. Most people probably wouldn't pick up on this. She's acting like he's asking her a different question.
She's much better here than she is in The Acolyte.
Yeah, exactly. She's acting as if he's asking her a different question. She's acting as if he is asking why he was there. He's not asking why he was there. He's asking a yes or no question. Was he there to see the president over a potential Parkinson's diagnosis? He's not asking why he was there. He's asking you a yes or no question, which you can answer because it concerns only the president. He's not asking you if he was there to do something else. He's not asking you to reveal that. And she's acting like that's what he's asking.
Right.
We have to give them.
The doctor.
We have to keep their privacy.
It is public information.
I hear you. Guys, hold on a second. There's no reason to go back and forth and be in this aggressive way.
There is. Of course there is. What do you mean? There's no reason to get excited here. There's no reason to get excited here. We're running a guy who can't talk against the guy who we are telling you is Hitler. But hey, no reason to get testy with me. Let's keep this civilized.
Norms, guardrails.
Yeah, let's keep this civilized. It's just that the president can't speak.
No norms, guardrails, and safetyism.
Wow. Wow.
Been shared with the press corps about him.
What do you miss about? What do you miss about?
Everything he just asked about.
And then every time I come back and I answer the question that you guys asked.
Correctly, you didn't have to come back and clean it up.
I never answered the question incorrectly. That is not true. I was asked about a medical exam. I was asked about a physical. That was in the line of question that I answered.
Unbelievable.
And I said, no, he did not have a medical exam. And I still stand by that. Matter of fact, the president still stands by that. He had a verbal check-in. That is something that the president has a couple times a week. A couple times a week.
Now in regards to Dr. Kevin Kennard.
And I am telling you right now that I am not sharing confirming names from here.
He's not asking you to confirm names. He's asking yes or no, was he there to see the president? Because does he think the president has Parkinson's, and was that why he was there?
Right. Well, she's falling back on, well, since I can't confirm a name, I can't confirm that he was there to see the president.
But that's bullshit. If she says no, he was not there to see the president,
well,
then there's no follow-up, because you understand you can't disclose personal information from somebody else if he was there to see somebody else.
It is the security reasons. I am not going to do that, Ed.
Wow.
It doesn't matter how hard you push me. It doesn't matter how angry you get with me.
Show.
I'm not going to confirm a name. It doesn't matter if it's even in the log. I am not going to do that from here. That is not something I am going to do. What I can share with you is that the president has seen a neurologist for his physical 3 times.
That has nothing to do with the question.
And it is in the reporting.
Nothing whatsoever.
That we share a comprehensive reporting. Matter of fact, it's more than what the last guy shared, and it is in line with what George W. Bush did. It's in line with what Obama did. And so it is comprehensive. It is out there. I just read a quote from it, but I am not going to divulge somebody's name or confirm someone. I'm not going to do that.
Not asking you to do that. Not asking you a very straightforward question. Was this Parkinson specialist there to see Joe Biden, yes or no? If you say no, that's it. There is no follow-up. Because obviously a follow-up would reveal personal details of someone who's not related to the story.
Right.
I will not. They're self-righteous. I will not reveal. That no one's asking you to do that. Damn. Well, what did he say? We're in fuck city. That's what Ari Emanuel said. Yeah, they are in fuck city. No doubt about that.
Yeah, the dam is broken. now all and hey, in terms of how all these power dynamics work, there's a press corps that got permission. They got permission. You couldn't ask this question a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden you noticed that Joe Biden's brains are leaking out his ears.
Hey, the Parkinson's guy could have been there for Biden in 2014. How do you know that's not why he was there? My mother has Parkinson's. This is the other thing. My mother has had Parkinson's now for about 10 years. And one of the things about Parkinson's is, first of all, Joe Biden's symptoms mimic my mother's almost exactly. And he seems about as far along as she is. Mobility issues, severe memory issues, difficulty putting sentences together, sometimes the slurring of words. Like, if I had to bet, I would bet he does have it. The convenient thing about having Parkinson's, if you want people to not know you have Parkinson's, is that, contrary to what some medical geniuses like Cenk Uygur have tweeted out, he should take a test to see if he has it. There is no test. There's no blood test for Parkinson's. You diagnose it by ruling out other things. It takes a long time. It can take years to actually diagnose Parkinson's. Even after you diagnose Parkinson's, you will have some detractors who say, well, I don't think it's Parkinson's. I think it's something else. There's no blood test for it where it comes up blue, you have Parkinson's, which means it's easy to deny you have it if you are the president. You don't want people to know you have it because there's no definitive test for it. But observing my mother over the last 10 years and observing Biden, I'm pretty confident that's what he's got. Because, it starts out mild, but it gets worse pretty quickly past a certain point, and that tracks what we've seen. In 2019, we saw him not quite sure-footed, not quite as sharp as he used to be, but still competent enough to get through a debate with, minimal embarrassment. But this is 5 years on from that. And I could tell, just from watching my mom, the timelines match up almost exactly. And so this seems to me to be what he's got. And the fact that you have a Parkinson's specialist visiting 8 times in 8 months, including a meeting with Biden's own doctor, now you're talking about something walking like a duck and quacking like a duck, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, regardless of whether he has Parkinson's.
Someone says, I'm sorry to cut you off, but this is important. So not dementia. No, Parkinson's. So dementia is a characteristic of Parkinson's. There's a couple of times. Lewy body is one of them. That's what they think Robin Williams had. So there's a mental dimension to Parkinson's. Michael J. Fox is the most high-profile sort of Parkinson's patient, and he kind of jerks around. His movements are very jerky and sudden. That, in my experience of dealing with people who have it, that's not the most common manifestation of it. It is largely decreased mobility, just like Biden. That gait, that not quite sure where you're stepping, can tip over at any moment, and yes, severe speech implications. So yes, dementia is certainly a part of it. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to address that because that is confusing to people.
Yeah, clearly he's non-compos mentis. Whatever he has, we can speculate. The fact that she had to answer that way, as you point out, if the answer was no, wouldn't you gleefully say no?
Just say no.
And just shut
Exactly.
the whole conversation
Right.
down.
Exactly.
The fact that she had to do this whole song and dance about the guards and the norms and the safetyism tells you, yeah, he was probably there to see Joe Biden. And if that ever comes out, that's pretty remarkable if they've been covering up that he has Parkinson's with full knowledge of the White House staff all these years. It is consistent with that rather remarkable Axios article about how they've not only kept Joe Biden away from the public and press conferences within the White House residence, they've kept him away from the household staff in a way that is not normal.
Well, yeah, the other thing too, and look, part of that could be that they want to shield him from as many eyes as possible because they don't want the word getting out that
exactly.
he can't run.
That's why. Yeah. But they
another
say
big
they've
part
been
of it-
doing that for his entire presidency.
Well, also, don't forget, he is the president. He is privy to the inside shit, as the dude Lebowski would say. He knows the real shit. A guy with Parkinson's whose mind isn't all there, how do you know he's not going to talk that shit to the chef? How do you know what he's going to fucking say that he's not supposed to say? Because this is, not supposed to get out there. Like, he could run his mouth, too. I mean, that's a liability as well.
Sure.
Yeah. And so, he look, one thing Cenk Uygur got right. Cenk Uygur freaks out. He has something. He clearly has something. He can't remember anything. He must have something. Yes, he does have something. And my bet
funny.
would be
I couldn't
Parkinson's.
believe the nuclear codes are super supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Right.
I couldn't believe. I was surprised. I didn't know they were Mary Poppins fans to write those codes.
Exactly. Like, you don't know. You can't let a guy like that just go and talk to people. Absolutely. And so yeah, look, I mean, the fact, like, some people were attacking, and the libs cancel your New York Times subscription for printing lies. I mean,
they're going to cancel their New York Times subscription.
I mean, unbelievable.
You can't make it up.
No, you can't make it up. You cannot make that shit up. It is unbelievable. But yeah, you're right. I mean, what if it comes out that they were hiding this? That they have been hiding this. And like I said, Parkinson's is the kind of disease that gives you a plausible deniability since there is no positive or negative definitive test. But clinically, when you look at it, you can narrow down the symptoms once you eliminate other things that you can test for. That is how you do it. And one other thing I will add about Parkinson's, part of how my mother was diagnosed with Parkinson's is they gave her a lot of medications for other diseases, and depending on how she reacted to them, they would say, okay, well, if it caused this reaction, it must not be that. They will give you medication and see if the medication works, if it has an effect, and they will rule out other things and sort of consider Parkinson's more as a result of that. One of the things my mother experienced for a long time, which she doesn't really anymore, severe hallucinations, where she sees people that are in the house that are not, and these are real. She once ordered like 10 pizzas because she thought she had a house full of guests. She thought there was a party going on. So she actually called the pizzeria and ordered a bunch of pizza, and the guy brought the pizza there to an empty house with just her and my dad in it. And so, like, it can be that real. That's the medications that they give. And so if they've been giving him medications that are fucking with his brain beyond what the Parkinson's does, that could explain why, Trump, he turns to shake a hand. You don't know that, but that's consistent with what I've seen. Right. And my mom has had this for about 10 years now. So yeah, it's not good. Not good. Not good for the White House to be just so psychopathic in their contempt for the public. I mean, this is just contempt for the public, and contempt especially for your own base, who you have convinced is staring down Hitler at the doorstep. Like, right. you've created these existential stakes in the mind of your most loyal supporters, and now you're going to stonewall them on questions about the president's health when the president just demonstrated in front of 50 million people that he's not up to the job. Like, to not level with people on even that level, just answer yes or no. It just shows, it just shows how full of shit they are. They're just full of shit. They can't possibly believe Donald Trump is the next Hitler. If they did, they would not be acting this way.
They voted to expand his spying powers in the middle of Russiagate.
Right.
Pelosi on down. They all voted to expand his spying powers. If you really believed he was a Manchurian candidate, would you vote to expand his spying powers? And if you did, aren't you treasonous?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's how we knew very early on. All right. Let's see here. Check out Britain rapper's low-key Genocide Joe music video just dropped today on Double Down News. Thank you for your coverage from a Palestinian. Oh, well, solidarity to you. Thank you very much for that. And yeah, my dad texted me about that right before we went on, so that must have just dropped today.
Yeah, people keep asking us to interview him. Now that we're really starting this series, we'll reach out to him.
Yeah, absolutely. First time tuning in live. So happy for you guys. Russ, thoughts on David Mamet and Keaton, your top 3 Yankees? Mine, Gehrig, Tino, and Wade Boggs. All right. Well, I could talk Mamet too. I love Mamet. In fact, I think American Buffalo with Russ and me and Jose would be a great production.
Okay.
I think we're right for those parts.
That's our January project.
Yeah.
I am. Well, now that you brought that up, we are going to do a call for play submissions because I'm figuring out my travel schedule and everything. So I'm thinking at this point, I'm going to break up my Asia trip into 2 trips because it's just going to be too much to put on Keaton for me to be gone for as long as I was thinking. So China in March, and I'll swing by and see the wife in Australia in April. But that means January, February, we might do a political theater festival that we will stream live that will basically be short plays, 1 acts, that kind of thing. So more details on that to come. As far as David Mamet goes, you know what? He holds a special place in my heart because growing up the way that I did, I had to educate myself. And it was the first time I found out they wrote plays where people spoke the way that the people where I came from spoke was when I stumbled on Glengarry Glen Ross.
Yep.
I read it long before the movie ever came out. I didn't know there was playwriting like that. I really didn't. And it inspired me quite a lot. In terms of his politics today, he's kind of gone intellectual dark web, honestly. I agree with him on some of the cultural stuff, but he's gone to such an extreme, so lacking in nuance, that it's kind of sad. He's kind of lost the plot.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, man, as a kid from the street who stumbled on Glengarry Glen Ross, that did a lot to convince me that there was a place for me in that world.
Oh yeah, that's a masterpiece. Speed the Plow. That's what I just pulled off the shelf there. And then he wrote a couple of great books on acting too. True and False is a great book about acting that he wrote. So he's a phenomenal talent, obviously. 3 favorite Yankees. All right. I mean, Paul O'Neill was one. Mariano Rivera, obviously. Although Mariano Rivera, you talk about a heartbreaker. That guy is a big Israel guy. Oh, that hurts. That stings to hell because I always loved Mariano. Not only the greatest, without question, at what he did, but he was always just a very, very humble, and he came across as a very humble and decent man, a family man, very, very, not braggadocious at all, just went about his business, didn't do the outrageous fist bumps and stuff like that. So he always struck me as a very good guy, but he's a bigger Israel guy. He's a really religious Christian. So maybe that's some of it. Maybe he's just brainwashed in that way. So Mariano, Paul O'Neill, my mom loved Wade Boggs. And, Wade Boggs was cool. So I'm gonna put Wade Boggs in there at number 3. I don't really have a third. I would say O'Neill and Mariano were my 2. I never really came up with a third. So I'll go with Wade Boggs for you for the third best. There you go. All right.
People are quoting Gary Glenn Ross. My favorite, you never open your mouth until you know what the shot is.
Never open your mouth until you know what the shot is. I love when Jack Lemmon gets the sale that he's so fucking proud of. He says, "Give me the fucking chalk." He's right because he wants to write it up on the board.
They just like to talk to salesmen.
Well, that's good, yeah. But I love when Lemon's so excited that he landed the sale, he's gonna write it up on the board. He says, "Give me the fucking chalk," ready to make a big show of it. No, that's an amazing play, an amazing movie. And I love American Buffalo too. So many of the things he did. I mean, even some of his films are really good.
House of somebody Games, mentioned he did the screenplay for The Untouchables.
Screenplay for The Untouchables, yeah. Oh yeah, no, major talent, no doubt. We should have him on and fight with him. That would be that would actually be an amazing interview because we would go back and we would fight with him about all the political stuff, but we're theater guys who we're fans of his work. Yeah. That would be interesting. That would be a rollicking good time. All right. His Highness, thanks for the $1. My bro and ma flew back from Toronto on a MAX 8. Thankfully, I got them back alive. Also, remember to do that Zionist Karen screaming at Uber driver story. If you don't, your dear pal, you ran off the screen there. But I know. You have something you're hanging over our heads with that. Let's see. Nocturnal Human.
We were gonna do it today, but there was too much breaking news.
Yeah, too much breaking news. Well, we might put that on a patron show, His Highness, if that gets cut out of the news cycle. But we'll do it for you, maybe as on our next patron show, or maybe Thursday. Depends on what breaks tomorrow. It's on our list. It just got bumped out because of all the breaking stuff. Nocturnal Human. I saw a Jackson Hinkle video on Rumble. It looks like he's actually in Ukraine. Maybe you can record an interview with him about what it's like there. Maybe ask Jimmy if he's okay with. You ran out of characters there as well, Nocturnal Human. That would be something. He went to Russia a while back too, didn't he? Hey Jack, I'm running for the thing. Watch me, Jack. Just watch. The guy that can't just lie. Thank you. Appreciate that. The Dems won't waste Newsom on this cycle, knowing it's already lost. They'll run Harris and save Newsom for 28. I think you're right about that. I don't think they're going to pull out any of the A team for this. I think you are right. Progressives are as right-wing as the Nazis they fund in Ukraine. May as well be. I agree with that to a large extent, Amadeus. Let's see here. Yeah. Russ, you may enjoy Chris Arnaud's tweet today about Oren Cass's New York Times op-ed. This is what elite failure looks like. My summary, it's way too late. I saw I don't know what tweet you're referring to, but I saw the headline of that article, and it was on our radar.
I'll check it out.
Yeah.
It wasn't on mine.
Yeah. We should check it out for sure. Sparky's here. Hey, Sparky. Hunter Kushner at 24. Thank you. Robert Penner. Hey, Robert. What's going on? Biden's doctor just released a letter. R.E. Kevin Kennard and Parkinson saying nothing to see here, but worded with plausible deniability. Is that true? Are you giving us a summary of that?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's breaking.
All right.
Since we've been on the air.
Since we've been on, that could be true, indeed. All right, let's see here. Okay. Whatever Biden has, Sparky, thanks for the $10. His sleep apnea doesn't help. Inconsistency in using a CPAP explains his inconsistencies and hallucinations. Hallucinations can happen when recovering from oxygen deprivation. And then this is interesting. Has your mom had a sleep study? Dad, I'm assuming that means your dad, seemed just like Biden at his worst, and consistent use of a CPAP turned him around quickly. He handled his own affairs and drove for 8 more years until 91. That is interesting, Sparky. I will relay that message. Thank you. Okay. Let's see here. What else do we got here? Eric Husseau. If Klobuchar was VP like originally planned, would Biden have already been pushed out, or are they still stuck with demented narcissist Joe Biden? No, I think if it were her, he'd have been pushed out.
Well, this is what's interesting, because you have this demented guy whose core personality is this arrogant, bitter, resentful asshole, and it's really put them in a pickle. Like, if they had Klobuchar, still doesn't mean Joe Biden, in the end, he's the president. It doesn't mean they wouldn't force them to pull a 25th Amendment on him to get him out.
They still could. They still could. Absolutely. Biden pulled the Trump, calling into Morning Joe. That's right. Except when Trump called, Joe pushed back on Trump, saying, pardon me, excuse me, Russia kills journalists. So Trump said, we kill journalists too.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I keep meaning to do this. I've mentioned this book a few times, This Town, by Mark Lebovich. I want to read the 2 pages that describe this morning ritual of Joe and Mika leading the jogging club with all of these politicians that they're supposedly covering.
Yeah, that could be good, because you've told me about that in the past too. Okay. I wanted to say this. I know you get a lot of suggestions. I don't feel entitled for you to listen to any of mine, and I'm not offended if you don't take them. Just like to share ideas. No offense taken, Nocturnal Human. Thank you. First prize. Yeah, I like this one. First prize, a brand new Cadillac. Second prize, a box of steak knives. Third prize is you're fired. Yes. Fun fact, the Alec Baldwin character in the movie is not in the theater version. In the theater piece, there is no Alec Baldwin
that's right.
character.
That's right. I do that.
They wrote his
right.
character in just for the movie. So that's a little fun fact there. Have you guys considered adding Al Pacino, Glengarry Glen Ross sound drops, great profanity and cathartic rage? Yeah, that would be good. We should add a few of those.
You know what I keep meaning to do? I actually cut it already. I keep forgetting to add it to the soundboard. I've got cuts of his I'm out of order, you're out of order speech from At Justice for All.
Oh, there you go. Yep. There you go. Yeah, that would be good. All right. I got a super chat here. That's coming up next, actually. Yes, Lancet, the most credible scientific journal in the world regarding medicine, has conservatively reported that 186,000 people or more killed in Gaza. Yes, so we're going to do that, actually, right now. So this is reporting on a new Lancet paper. It's a brief letter published by the Lancet. Unfathomable Lancet study estimates Gaza death toll may exceed 186,000. In a letter published in the medical journal The Lancet on July 5th, 3 public health experts cited a previous official death toll of 37,396, but pointed out that armed conflicts have indirect health implications beyond the direct harm from violence, making it likely that the total number of deaths of Palestinians so far is much higher and could ultimately reach close to 200,000, if not more. Even if the conflict ends immediately, there will continue to be many indirect deaths in the coming months and years from causes such as reproductive, communicable, and non-communicable disease, wrote the authors. The total death toll is expected to be large given the intensity of this conflict. Since the authors researched the analysis, the death toll has grown to 38,193, according to Gaza health officials. The authors wrote that an untold number of Palestinians in Gaza have died as a result of destroyed healthcare infrastructure and an inability to get medical care, starvation amid Israel's near-total blockade on humanitarian aid, and the loss of funding to UNRWA, one of the very few humanitarian organizations still working in Gaza. Rasha Khatib of the Advocate Aurora Research Institute, Martin McKee of the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, and Salim Youssef of McMaster University and Hamilton Health Sciences noted that in recent conflicts, such indirect deaths range from 3 to 15 times the number of direct deaths. Applying a conservative estimate of 4 indirect deaths per 1 direct death to the 37,396 deaths reported, it is not implausible to estimate that up to 186,000 or even more deaths could be attributable to the current conflict in Gaza. Using the 2022 population estimate of more than 2.3 million people, the projected total death toll would translate to 7 to 9% of the total population in the Gaza Strip, reads the study. Anthropologist Jason Hickel said the study pointed to apocalyptic figures in Gaza. The Gaza Health Ministry's death count has been questioned since Israel began its bombardment of the enclave, with U.S. President Joe Biden saying in October that he had no confidence in officials' reports, and the UN revising its civilian death toll in May as the health ministry amended its reporting of unidentified bodies. We covered that. They did not lower their death toll. They just moved identified deaths, some of the identified deaths, into the reported deaths column because they could not identify who had been killed. The Washington Post has used the Gaza Ministry of Health figures. They have vouched for the Gaza Ministry of Health. Also, Lancet has vouched for those figures in the past, very recently. Despite that change, wrote the authors, the number of reported deaths is likely an underestimate, both because of indirect causes of death and the probability that thousands are still buried under the rubble left behind Israeli airstrikes. So if they're still buried under the rubble, those would not even be considered indirect deaths. Those would be considered direct deaths. Now, just a little background on the Lancet in terms of the credibility of the publication. This is nothing many of you in the chat don't know, but it is considered a highly, highly credible medical journal. Ranked 4th worldwide.
Hamas!
Yeah, exactly. Ranked 4th worldwide in environmental and occupational health, 2nd in infectious disease, and first in the world, above the New England Journal, on the general and internal medicine field. So this is a definitive source here. And they're saying that the number is close to 200,000 already, if not more.
Makes sense.
Which makes sense. It makes sense.
How can it not be? Look what they're doing.
Yes.
Look what they're doing to these people. They have no food. They don't have reliable, clean water. They have diseases, newborns. I don't even think we got to that story that newborns are very unlikely to survive at this point. Of course, it only makes sense. I always thought that number seemed low, that only that many people were killed under conditions like this, where clearly Israel is waging a campaign of genocide and ethnic cleansing to do what they have always wanted and just eliminate the Palestinian people from the region. They want to be like other Western colonial powers where they wipe out the native population, and in 30 years they can put up a plaque somewhere and talk about how bad they feel about it once they have the land.
Yes. Yes. And good on the Lancet for publishing that letter. It's a short piece. You can read the whole thing as a primary source, which we usually do, but it was kind of difficult to format. But that was a pretty good write-up. You can read the whole piece. It's just page and change. It's a letter. But to have a letter like that released by such an esteemed organization, at least gives people a sense of the scale of the damage, because we always knew, 30,000, that's just incredibly low at this point. I mean, it was that in January? So the last 7 months didn't happen? I mean, it's obviously been way higher than that. But to have an estimate come in, it's grim. It's horrible, but it's good work by them to actually put that out and to put their name on that, because, what are you going to do? I mean, they say the Gaza Ministry of Health, they don't trust that. Ooh, we can't trust that. Even though the Washington Post said they do trust that. Lancet said they do trust that. But, this is, like I said, first in general medicine, second in infectious disease, and then fourth in environmental health, which all of those things play a huge factor in that death toll. I mean, there's not a single facet of life that is in any way close to normal now there. So, when you talk about health outcomes, you're talking about all of that. It's a very broad term in this case.
Right.
All right, we got one more topic here. Never forget Srebrenica.
Srebrenica.
11.
Srebrenica. So you're too young. You don't remember.
Yeah, what is that? I don't even know that.
That was during the Yugoslavia War.
Oh, yeah, I don't know that.
If I'm not mistaken.
Before my time. Regardless, not irregardless. Yeah, I know. That's a common thing people say. Thanks, Sparky, for the edit.
I took linguistics as an elective, and one idea they imparted that I agree with, and I always apply to things like that. There's no correct language. Language is whatever people use for language. There's no such thing as this is incorrect. If everyone commonly understands a word to mean a certain thing, that is how linguistic drift happens. That's why many of the words we use used to mean something else, because people started using them differently and they started to mean something else.
I should clip that as a short. Russ doubles down on irregardless despite challenge from Super Chat.
Russ chooses irregardless as hill to die on.
There was an actor. We were doing a play, and this
actor.
Yeah,
it was the Yugoslav war.
Yeah. So there were even. I know regardless. Russell knows Srebrenica. But there was an actor who was doing a play, and he just had too much pride to admit that he was describing the names of like foreign cities wrong. So he just kept saying them the wrong way anyway. Let's see here.
See? There you go. We're fighting the good fight here.
Yeah, right. We got a dictionary. There you go. Eric Rousseau, I hate my disgusting, heartless country. Fuck Uncle Scam and fuck scumbag, douchebag, Israel. Yes. Let's. Where's our scumbag, douchebag sound drop? It's a little hard to keep track of these now. I mean, you know it because you did it, but I'm getting acclimated to the new.
Once you learn it, it gets easier.
Yeah.
This fucking scumbag douchebag.
So the fictional characters are at the bottom. The real people are there. We go. Okay, now I get it.
Are above the fictional.
Are above the fictional ones. Okay, understood. Eric Rousseau, thanks for the $5. Russ and Jose need to do an intervention on Morning Joe's and Mika's U.S. Empire Club, Morning Jog Club. That would be hilarious. That would be pretty fun.
You know what? It would be, but you probably have security up the ass for that.
Yeah, especially if the people who are attending have whatever.
I will pull that down from the old shelves that used to be my backdrop in the other room, and I'll read that on one of the shows.
There we go. All right, folks. This last segment of the day here has to do with a story that was really broken months and months and months ago. The Gray Zone did, I believe, 2 pieces about this before the end of 2023. But, mainstream media catching up. This is from Haaretz. This kind of a bombshell. IDF, it shouldn't have been a bombshell because this has been out there for a while, but now it made official print media, right? IDF ordered Hannibal Directive on October 7th to prevent Hamas taking soldiers captive. Gaza division operations and airstrikes in the first hours of October 7th were based on limited information. The first long moments after the Hamas attack was launched were chaotic. Reports were coming in with their significance not always clear. When their meeting was understood, it was realized that something horrific had taken place. I mean, obviously, Haaretz, for those who don't know, I'm assuming everybody does know, this is one of the Israeli papers of record. So the fact that they're printing this means now it's safe to say, right? Now you can finally tell the truth once they tell it, right?
Yeah.
Communication networks could not keep up with the flow of information, as was the case for soldiers sending these reports. However, the message conveyed at 11:22 a.m. across the Gaza division network was understood by everyone. Not a single vehicle can return to Gaza was the order. At this point, the IDF was not aware of the extent of kidnapping along the Gaza border, but it did know that many people were involved. Thus, it was entirely clear what that message meant and what the fate of some of the kidnapped people would be. This was not the first order given by the division with the intent of foiling kidnapping, even at the expense of the lives of the kidnapped, a procedure known in the Army as the Hannibal procedure. Documents obtained by Haaretz, as well as testimonies of soldiers, mid-level, and senior IDF officers, reveal a host of orders and procedures laid down by the Gaza Division, Southern Command, and the IDF General Staff up to the afternoon hours of that day, showing how widespread this procedure was from the first hours following the attack and at various points along the border. Haaretz does not know whether or how many civilians and soldiers were hit due to these procedures, but the cumulative data indicates that many of the kidnapped people were at risk, exposed to Israeli gunfire, even if they were not the target. This is the procedure when an enemy invades Israeli territory, upon which a division commander can assume extraordinary authority, including the employment of heavy fire inside Israeli territory in order to block an enemy raid. A very senior IDF source confirmed to Haaretz that the Hannibal procedure was employed on October 7th, adding that this was not used by the divisional commander. Who did give the order? This, said the source, will perhaps be established by post-war investigations. One of these decisions, was made at 7:18 a.m. when an observation post at the Yitfa outpost reported that someone had been kidnapped at the Erez border crossing adjacent to the IDF's liaison office. Hannibal at Erez came the command from the divisional headquarters, dispatch a Zeke. The Zeke is an unmanned assault drone, and the meaning of this command was clear. This wasn't the last time that such an order was heard over the communications network. Over the next half hour, the division realized that Hamas terrorists had managed to kill and abduct soldiers serving at the crossing and at the adjacent base. Then at 7:41 a.m., it happened again. Hannibal at Erez, an assault on the crossing and the base, just so that no more soldiers be taken. Such commands were given later as well. The Erez border crossing was not the only place this happened. Information obtained by Haaretz and confirmed by the Army shows throughout that morning, the Hannibal procedure was employed at two other locations penetrated by terrorists. The Rayim Army Base, where the divisional headquarters were located, and the Nahal Oz outpost, in which female spotters were based. This did not prevent the kidnapping of 7 of them or the killing of 15 other spotters, as well as 38 other soldiers. The decision to conduct attacks inside the outposts, says a senior defense official, will haunt senior commanders all their lives. Anyone making such a decision knew that our combatants in the area could be hit as well. But such attacks took place, it turns out, not only inside outposts or bases. At 10:32 a.m., a new order was issued, according to which all battalions in the area were ordered to fire mortars in the direction of the Gaza Strip. Internal discussions in the Army noted that this order, attributed to Brigadier General Rosenfeld, was heavily criticized since at the time the IDF did not have a complete picture of all the forces in the area, including soldiers and civilians. Now keep in mind, when you talk about civilians, you're not necessarily talking about Israeli civilians or Israeli citizens. As the point has since been made, this could have been Americans. This could be people from anywhere, right? This is why all these other countries have an interest in uncovering whether or not this actually happened. And it's been fairly obvious to those of us who have been tuned in to the fringe media, like gray zone, that this actually did happen. This was not really news to us, but it's news that Haaretz is printing it.
Well, it was obvious they were covering something up when they buried the cars.
Yes, they buried the cars. Exactly.
And they got rabbis to give some a bullshit excuse. Well, we don't know. There were remains in the cars, so better
Ridiculous.
to bury everything.
Ridiculous. Yeah, we did that on the Jimmy Dore show, right? Like in mid-October.
Yep.
Hundreds of cars, right?
Yep.
Some of these were in open areas or in woods along the border trying to hide from the terrorists. At that point, the Army did not know the number of people who had been kidnapped. We thought they numbered dozens at that stage, a military source told Haaretz. Firing mortars at the Gaza Strip would endanger them as well. Furthermore, another order given at 11:22 a.m., according to which no vehicle would be allowed to return to Gaza, took this a step further. Almost done. This is a lot because it warrants it. Everyone knew by then that such vehicles could be carrying kidnapped civilians or soldiers, a source in Southern Command told Haaretz. There was no case in which a vehicle carrying kidnapped people was knowingly attacked, but you couldn't really know if there were any such people in a vehicle. I can't say there was a clear instruction, but everyone knew what it meant to not let any vehicles return to Gaza. In other words, they weren't told specifically to fire on a vehicle that they knew there was a civilian in, but they were told fire on all of them. And they knew that hostage taking was a part of the mission, so they had to have known that by issuing such a broad command, they were inevitably going to be firing upon kidnapped people. One case in which it is known that civilians were hit, a case that received wide coverage, took place in the house of Pesci Cohen at Kibbutz Be'eri. I don't know if I'm probably not saying that right. 14 hostages were held in the house as the IDF attacked it, with 13 of them killed. In the coming weeks, the IDF is expected to publish the results of its investigation of the incident. Yeah, don't hold your breath. Which will answer the question of whether Brigadier General Barak Hiram, the commander of Division 99, who was in charge of operations in Be'eri on October 7th, was employing the Hannibal procedure. Did he order the tank to move ahead, even at the cost of civilian casualties, as he stated in an interview he gave later to the New York Times? Well, it seems like that answered their own question there. The IDF spokesman responded by saying that the Army has been fighting for 6 months at high intensity on several fronts, focused on attaining the war's objectives. In tandem, the IDF has begun conducting internal investigations of what transpired on October 7th and the preceding period. Yeah, that sounds like a line that they would give you, right? Hey, we're trying to do both of these things at once. And by the time we're done doing the one, the other won't matter anymore because there'll be no Gaza left.
Exactly.
The aim of these investigations is to learn and to draw lessons which could be used in continuing the battle. When these investigations are concluded, the results will be presented to the public with transparency. So there you have it. What, 9 months late? I mean, the Gray Zone put out a piece on this in November, and I'm pretty sure they put out one in October as well. I'm pretty sure they put out two within like 6 weeks of the event.
Yeah, this is very interesting because Juliana Margulies, psychopath that she is, she wrote that insane article that I wrote a response to early on. And one of the incidents she mentioned was when Israeli soldiers had been kidnapped some time ago, 10, 15 years ago. And the settlement that they negotiated wound up releasing, I think the ratio was like 140 Palestinian prisoners for every one Israeli soldier, because the government was under such tremendous public pressure to get the soldiers back. That's why they'd rather kill them than to have to release Palestinians. They'd rather kill their own soldiers. Understand what a psychopathic criminal, as Norman Finkelstein has said, satanic state this is to have a policy like that. They'd rather kill their soldiers than have to release their prisoners.
Yep.
That's what that's about.
That's what that's about. Absolutely. And that is the front on which I find this to be most relevant, you know, because there are a lot of people who are saying, and they're not wrong to say this, right? I don't want to act like I'm like picking an argument, because they're certainly not wrong to say that, you know, the fewer deaths you can attribute to the IDF on October 7th, you know, the less of a propaganda tool it becomes to justify the ongoing genocide in Gaza. That's certainly true. But, you know, as a commentator, I look at this and I say the details of that day are relevant to the historical record, and it's obviously essential that journalists uncover the truth. I mean, that ought to go without saying, right? But whatever the death count on October 7th and however those deaths materialized, none of it justifies the collective punishment of people who didn't do it. Right? I come back, I land on that every time, just as a commentator, as someone thinking about this, as someone who doesn't have the skill set or the resources to go and do pieces like this. And I don't want to give Haaretz too much credit, because obviously they were not first to this. But, you know, the same thing with the 48-minute video, the same thing with all of this. You know, any kind of any attempt to litigate the atrocities that happened that day, and like Max Blumenthal said on the Jimmy Dore show last night, we're not denying that atrocities took place on October 7th and that war crimes took place on October 7th. That's not the point. The point is not to litigate whether or not that happened or even the extent to which it happened. The point here is that you see a response that is so outrageously disproportionate that those details become not irrelevant for the historical record, not irrelevant to those impacted by the violence, obviously, and we don't wish that upon anybody, but it's irrelevant to the question of what is happening now as a response. Because the fact of the matter is, right now, you have official count 37,000 and change. The Lancet, the most credible, arguably, medical journal in the world, said it's closer to 200,000. None of what happened that day can justify this, period. I land there every time.
Right. Of course. But when you do look at what they did, it's just more evidence. We talk about all of these criminal rogue states, and all we mean by that is they're not aligned with our foreign policy. We don't actually care how monstrous or not monstrous a state is. If we did, you could make a strong argument there is no state more immoral on the earth today than the Israeli state. If we actually cared about crimes against humanity, about genocide, about racism, about apartheid, we would never have an ally like that, much less to back it virtually without conditions.
Right. Exactly. Good point, Charles.
Yes. I'll clip that for Thursday.
Yeah, we need that. Absolutely. All right, folks, we're going to take some more Super Chats and Rumble Rants before we close the lights on this stream, and then we will be back Thursday morning. That's right, Thursday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern. No show tomorrow. We're on 3 days a week. But starting next week, we're going to have those interviews that we're going to drop on Wednesdays, those deep dive interviews, and then we will obviously clip portions of those too. So what we will do is we will premiere them. Looks like, we'll see what kind of time works best. It'll be a soft open, as they say in the business, but we're thinking 9 p.m. every Wednesday to premiere an interview. And then we will have the clips in the coming days. But that's coming up next week. We will take some of these. We'll take all of our remaining chats before we close the lights here. The Guardian, IDF says it has entered Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital in targeted operation against Hamas. Still? Also, The Guardian, no words for this horror show over a Russian bombing.
Oh, yeah. I shared a meme contrasting those headlines.
Yeah. It's just, it's just crazy. What was it? What was it? Keir Starmer who said something about that, and everybody's pointing out this is a guy, Keir Starmer, who said Israel has the right to turn off the water in Gaza in October of last year.
Right.
They have
On
the right
civilians.
to turn off the water, which will inevitably murder thousands of children.
Right.
And now he's outraged over this. That's what Russell was saying at the end of that segment. And it's not that you don't mourn the death of every child that's killed anywhere. A child is a child. Obviously, the most obscene thing you could do is kill a child. So it's not to like compare worthy or unworthy victims. Every child is every time a child is visited upon with violence, it's a horror. But yeah, no, we are very quick to condemn Russia. But not at all. But we still can't say if Israel has violated international law. Still at this stage, right.
I've got to look into this. I saw somebody share a headline that South Korea is suing the leadership of Israel for crimes against humanity. Well, we'll see if that checks out.
Yeah, you told me that. You told me that before we went on. We got to look into that. In the U.S., says Sparky, the word colonial once brought to mind seemingly positive things from the American colonial era, such as founding fathers and patriotism. Right. Might not be good for marketing in the Congo. Yeah. Indeed. Shina Billy, one of the authors of the Lancet piece, has deleted tweets walking back the article's interpretation. Make of that what you will. He got talked to. Well, they got talked to.
Of course he got talked to.
They got talked to during COVID, and I can't say much about this here because we will trip too many censors, but they had a paper that was very much. I'm trying to figure out what I can say here and what I can't.
This is the great so and so.
This is the what?
Declaration.
No, it's not that. They had a paper about one of the alternative remedies that was being explored. They had a paper that said it was very dangerous, and then they had to retract that paper, but they never. I don't know exactly how that resolved. I have to talk to Jimmy about that to get my story straight about that, because they did have to retract a major study during the pandemic, which the WHO said caused them a problem, but I don't know exactly how that materialized. But I'm sure they got a talking to about that, and I'm sure they got a talking to about this. There you go. But I do have to text Jimmy about that, because he's talked about that on his show in the past, and it was long ago, so I don't remember the exact details. But yes, they have. I'm sure they have been disciplined before. Shall I say? I shall say, right? Yeah.
Keaton won't get that, but I get it. My essay is coming. It's coming. I finished the writing. I'm in process of recording it now.
Okay. Let's see here. Yasim Miller, thanks for the $20. Appreciate that very much. I'm so glad you guys put up that 2025 project part of your show on YouTube today. Thank you. Yeah, that did pretty well. I wanted to share only that part with some friends who still watch mainstream media and misinform themselves. They need some perspective. Yeah, I dropped one of the 2 blocks we did. I'm going to drop the second block of that tomorrow. So keep your eye out for that. You could send your friends that as well. I dropped the part that was just sort of the general overview, but then we have the segment about Trump distancing himself from that. That's going to drop tomorrow morning. So keep an eye out for that, and thank you very much. For practical purposes, Israel is part of the U.S. like a malignant tumor is part of a person. Yep. Russell, do you also say I could care less? Like your hero, Mark Levin, instead, like your hero and mentor, Mark Levin, instead of I couldn't care less. I think a lot of people, okay, so that's one that I think most people say I could care less. I think most people don't say I couldn't care less. I think most people say I could care less, which, yes, is technically not correct, but as Russell was saying, it takes on a meaning.
Right. Once the meaning is common and it's commonly understood among the people that it's meant to communicate meaning to, it's functioning as language. This is why dialects may not be correct, but to see it as incorrect, that's off base. It's correct within the dialect among people who speak it. It's not incorrect. There's that kind of standard. Those standards. Those are class signals. It's not about language and communication.
All right. Landrew, thanks for the $100. Let's get the cowbell. Let's get the sound drop going for Landrew. Thank you very much. Wow, that's kind of you. In honor of Sparky, fighting the good fight for all of us, free Palestine, solidarity.
I am Landrew.
Landrew is dead.
Very kind of you, Landrew. Thank you very much. Okay, Kuznetsky Bassane, thanks for the $2.99 super sticker. Appreciate that. Aaron Mate discussed this with Piers Morgan. Yeah, he was on with a big panel, right? There was a big thing. That was like an hour long. I have to watch that. I saw he did it, but I have not had a chance to see it yet. All righty. Carl Adelhock, thanks for the 99 cents. Appreciate that. And Sparky's back here with 10 more bucks. Thank you, Sparky. Israel has the right to defend itself. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. Israel has the right to defend itself. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. Thank you, Sparky, very much. All right, everybody. That is our show. We are out of here. We will see you guys Thursday morning at 9 a.m. for some morning dew. And then starting next week, we keep the 3 streams and we add an interview. I think we'll announce those interviews maybe Thursday or maybe Sunday. We'll do it either one of those. We got a pretty powerful
by Sunday. I mean, we've got one confirmed. The other one's just confirming the time.
There you go.
So yeah. No, it looks like the first 3 are pretty solid. That's going to carry us through 3 weeks. We're coming out strong. There are 3 very strong guests lined up for the first 3.
Yes, we are very, very happy with this lineup. All righty, everybody. Well, we thank you very much. Russell, do you want to practice closing us out? Do you want to play us out? Are you going to do it?
You know, this is the tricky thing here. Because, okay, so, you know, I got a lot going on.
I know. You do have a lot going on. So,
you know?
Yeah, it's going to be something.
I got to get a cat to hit the... I got to train a cat to do that.
Russell's practicing getting out of the show so when I'm on leave, he can take care of it. But we do thank you very much all for being here this afternoon. It was a pleasure as always. We'll see you Thursday morning. Till then, be safe, be well.
Courage.
Please clap.